Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Ninjago video here on the channel. My name is TannerFishies. In today's video, we are going to be discussing a very interesting perspective that I've noticed throughout the Ninjago community involving the character known as Dr. Julien. And of course, if you guys don't recall, Dr. Julien is the father of Zane, otherwise known as his creator. He's also responsible for creating a lot of other things that we've seen throughout Ninjago's history, including several other sentient robots, especially Echo Zane, who was sort of seen as Zane's half-brother when he first appeared during Ninjago Skybound. Now, like I've said, I've noticed a certain trend throughout the Ninjago community, and looking into this rabbit hole, it does go fairly deep, and the consensus surrounding this perspective is that Dr. Julien was a horrible parent who abandoned one of his children, Echo Zane, and never bothered to go back for him, meaning that he is some type of abandoning monster or whatever. Now, like I said, this perspective thankfully is the minority. I feel like a lot of people still find Dr. Julien's character to be relatively wholesome, which I do especially, but I figured for today's video we could go through some of the common arguments that I've seen for Dr. Julien being a monster deep down. And again, maybe discuss why those points aren't exactly valid. Again though, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. In this case though, I'm not really sure why you would want to have a negative opinion on Dr. Julien, but more on that later. So for the timeline here, Dr. Julien passed away many years ago, but was resurrected by Samukai at some point before the Ninjago series began. Samukai requested vehicles for the skeleton army from Dr. Julien, but when Julien refused, Samukai decided to lock him away in a lighthouse prison. In this lighthouse prison, Dr. Julien built several new robots, including Echo Zane, a sort of replica of the Zane that he had lost. And of course, jump forward to Ninjago Season 2, and the Ninja and Zane rediscover Dr. Julien in his lighthouse prison, and after Dr. Julien departs with the Ninja, he no longer goes back to the lighthouse. He decided to leave the lighthouse in favor of helping the Ninja out with the final battle against the Overlord, but ultimately never returned to pick up Echo Zane or any of his other creations. And this is the main reason why some Ninjago fans feel as though Dr. Julien is an awful person. Because obviously he only cared about the one kid, right? That of course being Zane. Echo Zane was some type of duplicate, some type of cheap knockoff. He only loved the real deal. But ultimately, is that really true? Again, timeline-wise, it's not really clear how long after Season 2 Dr. Julien passed away. It could have been immediately after, and in my opinion, it couldn't have been very long after Lloyd defeated the Overlord, because Dr. Julien was already on borrowed time. He died of old age, and when Samukai brought him back to life, he did not get any younger, meaning that he eventually would die of old age again, and probably very soon after his resurrection. Now, we're not exactly sure how long he was in the lighthouse, but it had to have been quite a long time, meaning when we saw him in Season 2, his time must have been nearly almost up. Again, we're not exactly sure where in the Ninjago timeline Dr. Julien passed away for a second time, but at some point after Season 2 and before Season 3, he had died again, as Cyrus Borg mentioned that to Zane. So what I'm suggesting is maybe Dr. Julien always intended to go back to the lighthouse, but couldn't because he was already reaching his breaking point by the time Season 2 wrapped up. Maybe he always wanted to go back and pick up Echo Zane and bring him back to the mainland so he could meet with Zane and ultimately be there for the Ninja, but of course that never happened because of Dr. Julien's passing. I know some folks might say, then why didn't he tell the Ninja about Echo Zane and the others? And honestly, that is a good point, but I'm not really sure if that's completely valid either, because was Echo Zane even active before the events of Skybound when Jay and Nia found him? We know that several other robots were, but Echo Zane is the closest thing that Dr. Julien made to another Zane. The most intelligent thing in that lighthouse was probably Echo Zane. But again, was Echo Zane even active during the events of Ninjago Season 2? He could have just been there and suddenly activated after Season 2 was over and after Dr. Julien had already left. I don't think there's anything in the Ninjago series that says for sure that Echo Zane was active. Maybe he was active for a time but ultimately got deactivated, only to reactivate himself again during the events of Skybound when he sensed new faces entering the lighthouse. Again, Jay and Nia. So maybe that's why Dr. Julien didn't even bother telling the Ninja or Zane, because ultimately Echo Zane was deactivated and maybe Julien did not expect him to come back to life. And speaking of Skybound, following the events of Ninjago Season 6 and the erasing of time that occurred towards the very end of that season, Jay and Nia could have easily told the Ninja about Echo Zane, since they technically remember the events of Skybound alongside characters like Master Wu and maybe even Zane, if Ninjago Decoded is anything to go off off of. But still, Jay and Nia in this sense would be just as guilty as Dr. Julien then, because they knew that Echo Zane was out there at the lighthouse but still decided to not rescue him. So what's the deal with that? Now, like I just said, I don't think we can blame anyone here, because at the end of the day, this is simply a Ninjago series plot hole, for several reasons. For one, Echo Zane was not even around during the events of Season 2. Now, retroactively, he was at the lighthouse during Season 2. He would have had to have been. However, when Season 2 was coming out, obviously the writers did not intend for Echo Zane to be a thing, as Skybound would not happen until years later. So it's very obvious to me that the writers did not plan this far ahead. And the only reason why Dr. Julien does not mention Echo Zane nor try to go back for him during the events of Season 2 or after is because Echo Zane simply did not exist at the time. Sure, he existed in the timeline, but he did not exist physically because Season 6 had not come out yet. So we can't really blame Dr. Julien for something that the Ninjago writers did not even intend to introduce. And another reason why Dr. Julien probably should not be blamed for this is because this is one of Ninjago's most wholesome characters. Why do we feel the need to trash on him and make him out to be a monster? Like I said earlier in the video, opinions will be had, and whatever your opinions are surrounding Dr. Julien, feel free to have them. I'm just saying, why do we need a negative perception of a character that a lot of Ninjago fans and the Ninjago series itself portrayed as being wholesome and caring? It really doesn't seem like he deserves all of this hate. Like I said, not sure why some folks feel the need to take one of Ninjago's most wholesome characters and try to spin them into some type of abandoning monster, but just another day in Ninjago, I suppose. At the end of the day, guys, I don't think Dr. Julien is a horrible person. Far from it. I feel like he is one of Ninjago's best characters. He was caring to Zane at the time, and he would have been caring to Echo Zane at the time as well if the Ninjago series had decided to even introduce him back during Ninjago Season 2. But as it stands, this is simply a plot hole, probably not worth looking into it that much, especially if you want to spin something negative out of this entire situation. But I'm very curious to see where you guys stand on this, so in the comment section, feel free to let me know. Considering everything that we know about Ninjago, its timeline, and how seasons are developed, do you think that Dr. Julien is a bad person for seemingly abandoning Echo Zane at the lighthouse? Or do you find this plot hole to simply be a plot hole, not really worth looking into all that much, and spinning a negative situation out of one that isn't even remotely negative to begin with? Obviously, you guys know where I stand, but still, feel free to leave all of your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. And with that being said, guys, that'll pretty much wrap it up for my thoughts here. Thank you so much for watching. I enjoyed making this video. It's fun to discuss topics like this because you never know what you're going to see in the Ninjago community, and this is something that I certainly did not expect to see. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed today's video, feel free to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Peace.